Creates.
Would you rather have a lot of average content or a little bit of amazing and great content? Which is better for your content marketing strategy? What if I were to say it all depends, like everything in life? Find out why it all depends and how to unleash your inner artist with these content creation techniques and more on this episode of Digital Ninjas and D-Lake Media.
Hey, I'm Darren Lake, and welcome to this podcast series collaboration between Digital Ninjas, D-Lake Creative, and Podpaste. We're on a mission to supercharge your brand, company, or organization and help you change the world through digital strategy, training, and insights. Each episode, we answer questions and talk about one specific idea to help you market and run your business better. And we do that by making them easy to digest, short, and concise, because we've all got a business to run.
What is this series about?
And it's actually a panel discussion that I ended up being a part of that was really awesome. And I was joined by Natalie Rafa, who is the founder and CEO of SplashUp, which is an e-commerce software company. Also Jensen Gleer, who is a growth hacker extraordinaire, absolute wizard. And Brendan Hill, who's another content creation wizard. And he also is a venture capitalist investor. And then obviously myself, I was a part of it. Darren Lake, D-Lake Creates. I do a running fitness brand. So what will you learn in this episode?
Trying by doing new things with experimentation, the 70-20-10 rule, how and why discipline allows freedom, banking your ideas, being comfortable with pumping out bad stuff, and much more. Let's get into it.
Talking about the flow of ideas and creativity, we've touched on it a couple of times. Like, what are your sources of creativity? How do business owners become more creative? I mean, talking about plumbers and different industries. I mean, even a great example is that Dollar Shave Club video. You know, they built an entire business on this viral video that we'll put in the show notes as well. Yeah, interested to hear about your different sources of creativity and inspiration and how business owners can leverage that.
I would actually probably agree with Natalie's process of the why, the what, and the how. But realistically, looking at other competitors, but also looking at peripheral companies that may just generally be creating really good content. TikTok has their ad creative marketplace where you can actually see what's the top trending advertisements, and you can actually search via click-through rate. And so it's a matter of just mimicry, really. You can look at, all right, what's trending, what's something different, maybe look at sort of trending sounds. The thing is, you get a delay of about a week to 2 weeks between a trending sound on TikTok and a trending sound on Instagram Reels, which is quite interesting. So it means anything that you create on TikTok, you can then, there's a repurposing schedule, which is fascinating. But really, it's just about trying anything new. You know what I mean? And then looking at the conversion rates of like, is this converting? You know, look at your metrics, look at your ad platforms, look at your dashboards, look at whatever you have, even your engagement rates.
I also love, a formula that, is sort of breaking down into like the 70-20-10 rule, which is like doing like 70% of like, what's working, and then 20% on like more like stable stuff that sort of would work in the industry, and then 10% around like creative growth hacks, excuse my jargony term around growth hacking, but, it doesn't have to be like creativity as the like an ongoing muscle that you're constantly using 24/7. It could be something that, you've got a layer of experimentation around that's creative. So you can just try out like different sort of crazy ideas out there every now and then, but I don't think it should, take up your 100% of your time. But the 70% to find that and doubling down on that, that's where I think this is where it gets really fun. And I guess, coming up with these ideas around trends and analytics, and, that's where it gets interesting. Or delegate it, like especially with startups, like you assemble a team with the things that, that have skills that you may not have strongly. So, and I think, if someone's not creative, then it doesn't, why not get someone that has these skills and help you out on that, as long as you still, as part of a core person in the business, you still have your voice in that process and not lose that. It's just like, I'm just going to delegate it. Otherwise, it's just going to sound like very generic. So it's about, smart creativity.
Well, definitely on the delegation, like your micro influencers, your content creators, they're often better at creating content than you are. So you might as well pay them to do it. You know what I mean? Like, these guys are budding. They're, eager to start their careers, and you can get them for cheap. You can create those long-term relationships, and they will experiment for you if you give them enough free rein. Don't write a creative brief that's like so structured and, restricted. Write something that allows them to play with it. Like, we had a guy, Sam Van Fossen, who did this amazing black and white about the dangers of artificial intelligence. And it was hilarious. And all he was doing was like a comedic skit of him in a cardboard box pretending to be a robot. It was awesome.
I'd like to say I'm, 55% creative, 60% creative, and 40% analytical. And I always thought that was like, bad. Whereas I know a lot of creative people, because I have a big music background, music production, and they're just very like, bro, just let it free flow, man. And I'm like, no, it needs to be structured. But, but then I also am like, well, I want to break out of the structure. So I found that having frameworks and processes and systems has actually helped my creativity. So David Allen, who wrote Getting Things Done, or as I could say, Getting Shit Done, great book on the frameworks and the processes of organizing yourself. And what's really cool is that he actually is a very creative person. He wrote this really procedural productivity book that a lot of business people, he's a consultant, but he's actually a very creative person. And the reason why he's so creative is because everything is organized, and that allows him to be free. So it's the whole, like, your discipline allows you to have freedom. It's that kind of, it feels like it shouldn't work. It feels like it's contradictory. So I guess a quick insight would be, for me, what I do is I have buckets of ideas. So I have random ideas all the time. And I feel like I have more ideas than the normal person. And it's like overwhelming. I'm just like, oh my God, I got to write this down. I got to put this. And then I use my email as a place to hold all these ideas. And terrible place to organize your life, by the way. And then I would go through every few months and be like, oh my God, I spend 3 hours going through my email. And I'm like, oh. So I finally created this wacky system using Evernote, Asana, Todoist, Google Calendar. I don't like that I'm using all these apps, but they just don't all do the same thing, and I need them. And I basically create these containers. And this is the hardest part. I'm disciplined enough and have a schedule to sit down, and then when I go to create, I go for these containers that are all labeled in different categories, and then I pull them for my inspiration to then create whatever it is. And that has worked pretty well. I still have anxiety because I'm human, and I think that's just a part of me. But with that, I am not starved of content, where I know some people are like, I don't know what to post. I'm like, how is that possible? I have my Evernote of potential stuff, my ideas will last me to my life, and I'll pass it on to my son. And they'll probably 80% of it will never get done. And I've finally been okay with that. I'm like, 80% of these ideas will never be a thing, and they'll just sit in Evernote, and they'll just go away when the world ends. But that's fine. And I'd much rather have too much than not enough. And I also then run that through the filter, and I guess a Venn diagram of, what do I want to do over here? What do my customers, clients, whoever, potential fans want over here? What's in the middle? And sometimes I do a little bit more of what I want. Sometimes I do a little bit more of what they want. And I feel bad, because I don't like doing what they want usually. Because it's usually just generic stuff. And I'm like, I want to do the cool stuff. Some of my cool stuff fails. My really quirky, deep stuff, people don't give a shit about it. But then going all the way to right, I feel like I'm just selling out. So I find that middle ground, and, through as much content as I have, or content ideas, I can then produce from there. So automate that, please, for me. Can you create a company that automates that for me? Automate creativity, or you create some sort of an app that helps my brain.
Well, I definitely agree with that. But in terms of the individuals that are like, I don't know where to start, it's just get started, because it's the repetition that develops your creativity. Like, you look at, individuals that create cartoons for the New York Times, and 90% of their cartoons or drawings will be terrible, but they'll get that one or two that'll get picked up, and they're like, this is great. But it's the practicing every single day. So if you have a strategy where you can go, okay, well, this is what I want to do, and this is what's actually popular, and I can find that sweet spot in the middle, and then just keep aiming for that sweet spot, and just pump out terrible stuff. Just be comfortable with pumping out terrible stuff. and you'll occasionally get a gem that just resonates with your audience, and they'll be like, fuck yeah, that's gold. And that's kind of the...
Something that also happens when you pump out a lot of terrible stuff, your terrible stuff actually becomes quite average. And like, it's the whole, shoot for the stars, you'll land on the moon. And you become so good that it's like, you're like, oh, that sucks. And then it's actually like, it's actually pretty good. But then your amazing stuff obviously blows that out the water, but you just raise the bar of, your below par, below average stuff. And that's interesting when I realized I got there, and I'm not saying I'm this great creative person, but you start trusting your instinct, and then you start taking more chances, and because you're like, what's the worst that can happen? It's average. And then average, I'll still, my engagement is still decent because whatever, the algorithm still sends it out to X amount of people. I still get this many likes and this many comments, on a bad post. And that's kind of cool, but in the beginning, it will suck. So if you're a beginning marketer, beginning business, you will have some stuff that just gets 5 likes and you're like, really? Or whatever it is, sometimes 0. And that's okay though.
I think, get feedback from people who are good at what they're doing. I've seen SMEs who, for example, would go on Instagram, go on Canva, come up with some facts, post them every day, have some fluffiness and stickers, and then post them and be like, have 58 or 60 of these posts on Instagram, not see any engagement. And then, you're sort of like, okay, practicing and improving yourself, but ultimately you will get tired of that. So I really recommend, if you know someone, to reach out to them, have a chat, grab a coffee, pick up their brain, and then just see how you go from there. Just learn from other people.
Well, I think it's very much even back to exercise training. You basically look at your numbers and you look at where you're improving and where you need to improve, and it's that iteration of the combination of the creative and the analytics. Okay, I'm producing a whole volume of mediocre, sometimes great, sometimes terrible content, but what's resonating? You know what I mean? And then just following that little rabbit hole and seeing how deep you can go with it.
All right, thank you so much for listening. Really appreciate it. You know the drill. Make sure that you follow, subscribe, depending on wherever app you're on, whether you're listening to this as a podcast or you're watching it on YouTube, LinkedIn, wherever you get this. It really helps us get the word out. And if you're feeling this and you've gotten some value, please make sure you share this with someone that you know. And we'll see you on the next episode.